Just baseball show. It might be football season. It's still baseball season for us. Jack McMullen, Arm Layton. We're brought to you by the fine folks at BetMGM. I'm sort of kind of a Bears fan, but my level of involvement goes down on Sundays. Arm is a Dolphins fan, so he is locked in on
Ugh.
baseball and the weekend that was in baseball. We've
Yeah.
got a lot to recap there. You told me right before we hit the air, you're rooting for 0-16 for your Fins. Is that true?
Well, 0-17.
Oh, yeah, I forgot they added the other
I'm
game.
going all the way here, but yeah, they need to shake it up. I'm not watching. I didn't watch it down of week one because I had a feeling it was going to go this way, and it went even worse than I could have ever imagined when I look at the box score after. And judging by my group chats with my home friends, I grew up with going to Dolphins games, it was even worse than the box score suggested. So. I think it's Einstein's definition of insanity if they don't shake things up here. And I think it's going to require an 0-17 or at least something really bad to shake it up. So I can't believe I'm rooting for that, but that's where I'm at. I'm focused on the fantasy teams and baseball. And I'm really excited about the division chases here too. This is also a Bears household. My girlfriend, Ellie, Bears fan. I at least can get behind the excitement of that team instead of the same old thing with the Dolphins.
Yeah, and listen, Detroit's offense did not look great on Sunday, so I'm hoping that Ben Johnson took it over to Chicago, and my level of involvement with the Chicago Bears can escalate a little bit. You mentioned the division races. Here's what we got on the docket today. Division races. Trea Turner has a hamstring strain. MRI on Monday. Have not gotten the results of that just yet. Kodai Senga was optioned to Syracuse to get right. We want to talk about that as well. The whole idea of an underappreciated pitcher. I want to hit on that and expand. Couple of guys are expected to be posted from NPB over in Japan. That'll be the back half of the episode. And then the series of the week kind of pushing into this playoff hunt as we get into the second week of September. But you brought up the division races, and I am curious, does anybody really want to win the American League East, the American League West, or the National League West? And I pose that to you, and we'll kind of go division by division here. The one that jumps out to me is the NL West in that regard. Dodgers have dropped 7-10. They salvaged, they avoided the sweep in Baltimore. Padres have dropped 7-10. They did win a series over the weekend. The Dodgers sit at 79-64. The Padres at 78-65. So a game separates those two right now. So I ask you simply, who wants to win this division right now?
It's funny because we always talk about 162 as a battle of attrition, right? Like it's just whoever can survive the never-ending journey that is a Major League Baseball season can just usually take it, or you generate such a lead in the first half because you're so dominant, a la Tigers, that you can coast a little bit more down the stretch. I don't know if I can remember in the last few years an example of the battle of attrition side of things being highlighted in so many divisions at the same time. And I look at the Dodgers and the Padres where I was trying to prepare for this conversation and say, okay, well, what are some statistics I can look at, some trends I can look at? It changes every series. You figure, oh, they'll get right here. I came prepared with the schedule remaining, but that might not even matter because the Pirates just beat up on them. So I don't really know. I do still want to go through the schedule remaining, but it really is just going to come down to who's going to get hot here over the final week or two, or who's not going to suck. I think that might be it too. Who can play 500 ball while the other one sucks?
I think that's the big thing to me because I look at the Dodgers getting swept by the Pirates in Pittsburgh. And by the way, Don Kelly, I think still over 500 as the Pirates skipper since taking over as the interim manager.
That's a pretty big deal, actually.
It is a huge deal. So they're going to remove that interim tag very quickly on Don Kelly and make him the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. But Dodgers got swept by the Pirates in Pittsburgh. And then a day after that series concludes, Kyle Freeland goes 8 scoreless and punches out 10 Padres in Colorado. And I'm thinking, what in the wide world of sports is happening right now? But that's the nature of the beast. Walk us through the remaining schedules for the Dodgers and the Padres. And let's talk through that because I'm just trying to figure out who's going to will their way to the finish line sooner. It's like Ricky Bobby and John Gerard jogging to the finish line at Talladega and Talladega Nights.
Yes, literally. Also, I guess Kyle Freeland took out all of the Rafi Devers frustration and just decided to have an all-time outing.
He started on 2 days rest because he only threw 8 pitches, and the 8th pitch of the game was taken to
Well, that's
Mars.
an interesting note. Kyle Freeland on 7 days rest. Maybe that's the fix. He's just going to shove. But so Dodgers, they have 3 at the Rockies as we're recording this. 3 at home against the Rockies, 3 at the Giants, 3 at home against the Phillies, 4 at home against the Giants, 3 at the Diamondbacks, and 3 at the Mariners. Overall, it's a pretty tough schedule. And I think when you compare it to, you tell me what you think is more difficult. Padres have 3 at home versus the Reds, 4 at home versus the Rockies, 3 at the Mets, 3 at the White Sox, 3 at home against the Brewers, and 3 at home against the D-backs.
Dodgers is way more difficult there.
I agree.
I agree. Okay. So naturally, I think you forecast San Diego makes up the game, and they could very well win this division.
Yeah, but that's not how it's going to go, right? Somehow the Padres are going to get swept by the White Sox. The Dodgers are going to have a great series against the Phillies, then flounder against the D-backs. That's the thing. I always want to go by schedule, but if you really are stuck on a tiebreaker here, I do think that the Padres have a better path ahead, especially when you got 3 against the Rockies and another 3 against the White Sox.
Yeah. So
or 4 against the Rockies, excuse me.
4 against Colorado. Okay. Yeah, it is interesting. And San Francisco could also just win 15 in a row but that's not going to happen. I promise you that. San Francisco looked a little dead this past weekend in St. Louis. I don't know, man. It's really interesting. I will say I don't expect either of them to avoid the wild card series. I would expect the 2 buys in the National League go to Philadelphia and go to Milwaukee. So, they will get those, and you'll see the Dodgers and the Padres both playing on wild card weekend. Real quick, I have the same question about the AL East and the AL West. Let's go to the AL West here. Houston is the leader right now. Seattle is 2.5 back. Texas is 4 back. Houston has dropped 6 of the last 10. Seattle has dropped 6 of the last 10. Texas has won 7 of their last 10. So Texas is trending upwards, but they do chase by 4. How do you see this division stacking up at the end?
Yeah, I think it's still just too much for with the amount of games that we have left. It's going to be tough to make up that ground, especially when then you look at the Mariners schedule. Everyone plays the Rockies here down the stretch, I swear, but they got 3 against the Rockies. But I will say, it's not necessarily a cakewalk. It's 3 at home against the Cardinals, 3 at home against the Angels, 3 at the Royals, who are going to fight till the bitter end, 3 at the Astros, which that series is going to be circled, and they got to go win on the road there. That's something that's been a little bit of a challenge for them. Those 3 aforementioned, the Rockies, and then 3 against the Dodgers to wrap things up. So you flip that around, though, it's not like the Astros is a cakewalk either. They've got 3 at the Jays, who are going to be fighting tooth and nail, 3 at the Braves, who are playing better ball right now, 3 against the Rangers at home. That Mariners series we mentioned, 3 at the Athletics, which can turn into anything, and then they close out with 3 at the Angels. So I think it's a little bit easier maybe for the Astros, but I really think those schedules are very comparable, and a lot's going to come down to that series of those 2 teams against each other.
I could absolutely see that shaking out. And then Texas is the wild card that you would throw in here. Are you factoring Texas out entirely?
I think it's going to be hard to make that up, no?
Probably. 4 back on September 8th is very hard to make up, but all of a sudden, Seattle loses, Houston loses, and Texas wins, and then you're right back in the conversation. Texas is pitching. No Eovaldi, I felt like was going to be the thing to do him in. No Eovaldi and no Seager, I feel like is surely the thing to do them in, but this is baseball. You never really know how weird it can be. You think Texas is on the outside looking in?
I do, because of that. I feel like they would need to go in a crazy stretch where they've got a guy giving them 6 impressive innings every single time out, and Eovaldi being in that rotation would help. That said, Kelly has been fantastic. Leiter continues to throw well, but I think it's going to take a miracle run from them to get the division.
Okay, we got a minute. Who wins the AL West and why?
AL West, I still think the Mariners. I think the Mariners will finish strong here, get a little bit hot down the stretch. J-Rod does his thing when you pair him with Cal. I think this team is just going to swing it well enough, and the pitching will do its thing.
Houston, for me, is my pick because Hunter Brown is throwing the ball exceptionally well right now, and Yordan Alvarez is swinging out of his freaking mind at the moment. Welcome back to the fold, Yordan Alvarez. He's swinging like he was never hurt, and he missed 5 months this year, which is absolutely amazing. It will be a showdown in the American League West. We're going to talk about the AL East in a moment and a notable injury in the National League East to Philly shortstop Trea Turner. Stay locked right here on Sports Grid and on the Just Baseball Show. Just Baseball Show, Jack McMullen, Aram Layton. The only other division that we didn't talk about that is in a deadlock in segment one. We talked about the NL West and the AL West. I want to talk about the American League East real quick because Toronto, while they have been magical, is stalling out a little bit right now. They dropped 2 in a row over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday. They've won 5 and lost 5 over their last 10. Meanwhile, Yankees are playing good ball, in large part because the Yankees just took a series at home against the Blue Jays over the weekend. Boston sputtered a little bit. They dropped 2 or 3 in Arizona over the weekend, and the Red Sox are 3.5 back as it stands right now. Toronto is 82 and 61. Yankees are 80 and 63. They're 2 back, and the Red Sox 79 and 65. Again, they're 3.5 back. How do you feel like this thing shakes out? Do you feel like the Yankees are in a position to push and maybe bunny hop Toronto?
I think they're in a position to push Toronto and kind of separate themselves from the Red Sox. And it's just unfortunate for Boston. We talked about it on the show a couple of times, but I just think Roman Anthony was such a ridiculous dynamic to add to the top of your lineup. But other than the trade deadline, and you imagine how expensive would it be to add a bat that can get on base at the clip that Roman was getting on, hit the ball as hard as he is, play solid defense. I mean, Roman was the prototypical modern leadoff hitter that I think added this layer to their lineup that they were missing. You compound that with Wilyer Abreu just not quite coming around here on this injury rehab. They put him on the IL, like I think retroactively, so it won't be as long, but they're focused on getting him back for the playoffs. So all of a sudden, I think this team, this outfield depth is a little bit thin. And I think you're seeing the Yankees, a little bit separate themselves a little bit there. I thought overall, the way that they played against Houston was a fun series where you felt like you're getting a little bit of taste of what postseason baseball could look like. But I think the Jays, like, they're going to hit and they're going to defend, they're going to do their thing, but they do look like they're hitting a little bit of a wall here. And the Yankees, I don't know where are you at after the last series or so with them, where all of a sudden I look at the roster, I look at the box score, and I'm like, this is still a really good team. When you're watching these games, all of a sudden you say, okay, well, I can talk myself into it when they're all clicking. And when Jazz is swinging the bat like he is, Giancarlo's come down to earth a little bit, but then still had a big homer the other day. And Judge is fully back. And I think that's the biggest layer in this thing too. Like Judge is getting that OPS back, up over 1,000.
Yeah, I think the way that I took in this weekend is, number one, I take Jazz Chisholm for granted, and I should stop taking him for granted. We talked about it on the last episode of the Just Baseball Show. Jazz is pushing to become the third Yankee in the 30-30 club. Alfonso Soriano did it twice. Bobby Bonds did it once. Alfonso Soriano, Bobby Bonds, and Jazz Chisholm. This is the Yankees that we're talking about. And Jazz could be the third to have a 30-30 campaign. Obviously, the game has changed. It's probably a little bit easier when your focus is on hitting the ball out of the ballpark and stealing bases. But Jazz is trying to do something that Mantle never did. DiMaggio never did, which is crazy to think about in the history of the Yankees franchise. But I take Jazz for granted, or I took him for granted. I won't moving forward. And honestly, I thought Schlittler was throwing the ball better than really anybody else in that Yankee rotation. And he was the one that coughed up a game on Friday against Toronto. So for me, I look at this starting rotation right now and I say, okay, it's at least on par with the Blue Jays at the moment. And obviously Bieber's presence is huge, but it's not like Barrios is throwing the heck out of the ball right now. Gosman has been very good, but it's not like Bassett has been great. And the bullpen has plenty of concerns. The Yankee bullpen, it's been well documented their struggles, but at the end of the day, you bet on the Bednars and the Dovals and I guess the Devons and the Luke Weavers. You bet on that. I feel like on paper and the rest of the way, this just skews the way of the Yankees.
Yeah, I just think of the last two series, maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, but like, dude, this is a gauntlet stretch, and I'm interested to see how they handle the Tigers series as well. Because when you take 2 out of 3 from the Astros and really beat them up in 2 of the 3 wins, and then it was kind of a back and forth battle in the middle game, and then you mentioned just kind of getting your teeth kicked in a little bit with your young pitcher on the first game of the series against the Jays, but then bouncing back for 2 hard-fought wins. It just seems like they're locking in here at the right time, and that could make things really interesting. And then you look at the schedule. The Jays have 3 against the Astros and the Orioles, 4 in Tampa, 3 in KC, 3 in Boston, and then 3 at home to wrap up against Tampa again. So it's not necessarily a cakewalk because, Tampa's going to push it all the way down to the finish line, and they'll probably be mathematically alive up until maybe that last series. And then with the Yankees, they kind of got through, I think, some of the toughest part of their remaining schedule here. They'll have the 3 against the Tigers, but then it's 3 at Boston, 3 at Minnesota, 3 at Baltimore, 3 against the White Sox, and then 3 at home against the Orioles again. So it is, I mean, I'm sure the Orioles would love to play spoiler and they have plenty of talent, but I know which of those 2 schedules I'm taking.
Right. You're playing teams that want to play spoiler versus teams that are in it. And I would much rather play the teams that want to play spoiler because every team out of contention wants to quote unquote play spoiler. How many genuinely believe that and are, hell bent on doing that moving forward? I'm just not sure that there are many teams that can do that night in and night out in the month of September, but we
100%.
shall see. Yeah. So we got a couple more minutes here on this segment. I do want to talk about Trea Turner for a brief second because this guy, he exited Sunday's game against the Marlins in Miami with a hamstring strain. Trea Turner was trying to leg out an infield single. He ended up reaching on an error. It didn't look like he was limping at all, but he walked right into the Phillies dugout and down the clubhouse steps and into the clubhouse. It was a bizarre sequence, and you knew this guy was hurt. Trea Turner has been amazing this year. This is a quote from his manager, Rob Thompson, after the game on Sunday. There's some concern there. Obviously, he's having a great year. He's a big part of this ball club. I want to keep people healthy, especially coming down the stretch here. We'll know more tomorrow. We are waiting to learn a little bit more about Trea Turner. He had a hamstring strain last year. Jason Stark of The Athletic mentioned that he missed 6 weeks at that point. 6 weeks is no good because that gets you into mid-October. You hope it's low grade, and you hope it's 2-3 weeks, and he can ramp up a little bit and be ready for postseason play. But based on that, it seems like the Phillies could be without Turner as they try and lock up a division.
It sucks too because for those types of players, you just feel like they're playing, even when they come back, just at a diminished version of themselves because the speed is such a big part of their game, right? So it's always tough. And of course, you're going to take that bat too. He's slashing 305, 356, 458 this year. He's having one of the best seasons of his career from a WAR F4 perspective. He was on pace to make a push to be right there to his highest total, which was in 2021 at 7.1 with the trade in between, which is funny. But this is, I think the biggest part about this too that's interesting to me is Turner's made a huge leap defensively this year, and the metrics love him, right? He's playing as good a shortstop as he's really ever played. And I wonder when he comes back from that, like, is the hamstring going to hamper some of that range and that quickness and that movement that has clearly been an asset to him and his team at shortstop this year? And then beyond that, how big is stealing that 90 feet, and getting that bag and Turner's that dynamic that he adds to a lineup of just thumpers with 36 bags this year is something that I'm sure even if he does come back is going to be diminished. So I am a little bit concerned about that because I think he's been one of the more important players with the multifaceted dynamic that he brings to this team.
Yep, we shall see. Trea Turner, his WAR total, it matches currently that of Jimmy Rollins in his MVP season for the highest WAR by a Philly shortstop. We'll be back in a moment on the Just Baseball Show. Just Baseball Show, Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton. We are talking National League East. We just mentioned Trea Turner and the hamstring strain. You hope that Turner is okay. Trea Turner, if the season were to end today, he would have won the National League batting title. He's hitting 305, which is just amazing. Another guy having a good year on paper is Kodai Senga, the right-hander for the New York Mets. And if you just looked at Kodai Senga's baseball reference page at the back of the baseball card, you feel really good about what Senga has done this year. Bounced back. He made just one start in 24. He's got 22 starts at a 3.02 ERA. But Senga, his last couple of starts, 4 1/3 in Milwaukee, he walked 3, allowed 3 runs. Then 5 2/3 a 2-run ball, he was good against Atlanta. Then he goes to Washington, 5 innings of 5-run ball, he walked 2. Then he starts at home against the Phillies, 4 innings of 3-run ball, he walked 3. And then he starts at home against the Marlins, 4 2/3, 5 runs, he walked 2. This guy is just not throwing strikes right now. Yeah. It seems like something is totally off. And the New York Mets, with the approval of Kodai Senga, who signed a free agent deal, he did not have to accept this minor league assignment, was optioned to AAA Syracuse. Kodai Senga, 22 starts at a 3.02 ERA, is going to AAA. Yeah. Vaguely, what do you make of that?
I appreciate him being willing to do that and not take, hold the team hostage there and go work on something while they can bring up another arm. And Sproat threw really well in his big league debut. And I think that was exciting, right? To be able to bring up another prospect here and have Brandon Sproat do what he did in Great American Ballpark. I thought that was extremely impressive. So getting Sproat that opportunity and getting a little bit of spark into the rotation is great instead of like oh crap, what's Senga going to look like this time around again? Get a breather from that. But at the same time, it is interesting because when I look at the data, there's nothing like I would say concretely different when you look at the just kind of the strike rate. You look at just some of the chase numbers in general. But the one thing that does stick out to me is the chase numbers against that splitter, which are down. And is that because of how he's locating it? It's easier takes, or is that because the league is adjusting to Senga a little bit and saying that's the one pitch that if I can recognize it, or if I can recognize a starting point here, basically anything that starts at the belt, I'm leaving. And if it's a fastball, he locates at the knees, tip the cap, but his fastball's not that good. So I have a good chance to feel like I can get to it. And if it's a splitter, it's going to break below the zone. Seeing that splitter chase rate drop by 7-8%, like that's huge for a guy that doesn't throw a ton of strikes, right? Yeah. Because he's reliant on that chase to up his strike rate because his in-zone rate is very low. Yeah. So that is definitely a challenge for him now. And it's like, okay, how can I get guys out inside of the zone? How can I beat hitters within the zone now? And I think that's going to be the focus going back to AAA. The cutter is probably that bridge pitch to make it happen. And that's a pitch that he had going for him a little bit more early in the year. That pitch hasn't been there as much this year, and maybe that's going to be the focus for him.
It's funny. We kind of sound like a broken record as it pertains to Senga, because if you were listening to this show at the end of April, we talked about all the guys with a sub-2 ERA at that point after the first month of the season. And Senga was one of them. And we went in depth on Kodai Senga, and we said, how is this guy throwing the ball this well? And we talked about the fastball fork combination, and we ID'd the cutter. We said the cutter being a taste breaker enough, being present enough in his arsenal, is making him a frontline starting pitcher because he can flash 96 at you. He was also sitting 96 at that point. The thing that jumped out to me at watching his last start in the big leagues before this AAA option, the velocity was so inconsistent on the fastball and the cutter. I mean, one is 92 and then the next is 97 on the four-seam fastball. What's happening right now with Kodai Senga? And then he's spraying it a little bit at the moment, but that cutter, the presence of it has not entirely gone away, but it's diminished from what he was doing at the beginning of the year. So to your point, the taste breaker is gone. You effectively turn him into a two-pitch pitcher. And also to your point, it's not an awesome four-seam fastball.
No.
So you can half-baked prep for that and then just identify where you want to let the ghost fork go. And if you have your spot down and saying, we're not going to swing at that ghost fork when we identify it, okay, you're probably drawing a walk or you're getting a hit on the four-seam fastball.
Well, I think you nailed it. Like if I'm trying to prepare my team of hitters right now, and I'm just giving them these numbers here. Last 10 starts for Kodai Senga, opponents are hitting against his four-seamer 315 with 1,051 OPS.
Yeah.
The splitter has a 492 OPS against in that span, but it has an in-zone rate of 29%. So what are you going to let beat you? I think I'm going to let the guy who throws a splitter in the zone 29% of the time throw it in the zone 3 times to beat me. You say, well, that's easier said than done because the whole point is it looks like a fastball and then it bites below. Great. So then I'm also going to dare the guy who knows his fastball has an OPS against north of 1,000 to throw that fastball at the knees and freeze me. Because one, I don't think he has the confidence to locate it there. 2, he ends up missing up with the fastball. Then it gets crushed. And 3, he has to then either locate the fastball at the knees, then also the splitter, or the splitter multiple times. And right now, that's just too hard to do.
We'll see if Senga can recalibrate in AAA and be back for the postseason push. We'll keep on moving next on the Just Baseball Show. Just Baseball Show, as always, is presented by the fine folks at BetMGM. Jack McMullen, Aram Layton, we're talking to you via YouTube. We're talking to you via podcast, wherever you are listening, whether that's Spotify, Apple, somewhere else. Those are like the big two. And then everybody else is kind of weird, in my opinion, but that's okay. I respect you if you listen somewhere else. And on Sports Grid, we just talked about Kodai Senga accepting his option to AAA, trying to gear up for a Mets postseason push. Now I want to talk about some guys that are underappreciated on the mound in Major League Baseball. And we started talking about this on the last episode of the Just Baseball show. I watched Cristopher Sanchez go 7 innings of one-run ball for the Philadelphia Phillies and lower the ERA, I think, to 2.6. Cristopher Sanchez, yeah, he's 5th in all of Major League Baseball in ERA. And 24 hours later, I watched Yoshinobu Yamamoto put up maybe the best pitching performance that we've seen in 2025. The Dodger right-hander went 8 2/3 no-hit before Jackson Holliday clipped him in that wild game on Saturday night in Baltimore. That was a 4-3 win for the Orioles, celebrating 21-31 for Cal Ripken. It was the game in which he broke Lou Gehrig's Ironman streak. Yoshinobu Yamamoto got my gears turning a little bit in my head. And I thought, okay, this guy's a $325 million pitcher. So far this year, he's made 27 starts at a 2.72 ERA. Since he debuted last year, he's top 5 in all of baseball in ERA. The only guys ahead of him are Skeens, Skubal, Sale, and Wheeler. Why does he still feel underappreciated? And I got to thinking, it's because when we think of the Dodgers, it's, oh, this guy's hurt, right? Snell was hurt. Now he's back. You're curious to watch Snell starts. Tyler Glasnow's hurt. Clayton Kershaw is amazing. He just got his 3,000th strikeout. Shohei Ohtani's amazing. Freddie Freeman, he's awesome. Mookie Betts is struggling. Why? Teoscar Hernandez can't play right field anymore. What's going on with Conforto? The guy lost in the shuffle is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball that's making $325 million. That jumped out to me, and I started to think about who are the underappreciated pitchers in baseball and why are they underappreciated. And Yamamoto jumps out to me because he's so far down on the list of headlines for the Dodgers. And Sanchez, simply put, he's not sexy, but it works, and it's been working for years. What makes a pitcher underappreciated in your eyes?
It's funny. I guess it's now the modern day of it is just how much are we getting inundated with their clips and stats and stuff every time we scroll on social? And to be honest, it's not enough with those two. And I think that's a big part. And then it's airtime and all that good stuff. But I also just think you put the conversation together of since this date, Yamamoto has been doing X, which puts him with pitchers Y, Z, and W, which you just did. And all of the pitchers that you listed alongside get more airtime than him. So I think that's a really good way to put it. I think put that case together of who's the most underrated of this group or underappreciated. It's the guy that's not getting as much discussion as the players who are statistically right around him. And I think the interesting thing with Yamamoto too is when you're on a team like that and the expectations are so high and you meet your expectations, it's almost a good thing to be like under the radar in that regard. That means you're doing your job, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think his contract put him in a spot where it really, I think, causes fans to underestimate how impressive it is what he's doing. Yes, he got paid to do this, but to come over from Japan and immediately make the impact that he's making. And mind you, he had an injury last year, a shoulder thing that we were pretty confident, like his javelin throwing, this guy's got it figured out. He's going to get himself back, and he did. And he came back as strong as ever and then made some big postseason starts for them. And then, has done what he's done this year. He's been awesome. And then I think you look at the Cristopher Sanchez side, I think it is because it's not sexy. And he just goes out there and picks your lineup apart, doesn't maybe pop up in any crazy stat queries or things like that. But I mean, Yamamoto was 1 out away from throwing a no-hitter. And then I think we would have saw a little bit more love for him if he had got that. But I think we'll see it in the postseason when more eyeballs are there because this guy has the complete pitch mix. And that's the difference, right? And that's why when I was writing up the scouting report on him before he was coming, as he was coming over, I felt so good about his chances of succeeding in the big leagues because it's a deep bag of pitches that are all really, really good.
And he executes all of them. You look at the holiday homer, and I think Rob Friedman, Pitching Ninja, put this out. He had where the catcher was set up on that, and Yamamoto dotted that on the inside rail of the strike zone, and Holiday just got his hands in and belted it to right field.
Yeah.
Was it, mistake spot? I don't know. That's for you to decide. That's for the scouting report. But at the end of the day, Yamamoto hit his spot to a T on pitch number 112 of his start. This guy's a gamer. And I do think the love is going to build up, to your point, in the postseason, because you will see the postseason ace Yoshinobu Yamamoto shine through. But people are going to be obsessed with the Otani start. People are going to be
Yeah.
obsessed with, the possible Kershaw start in the postseason. He's got a low 3 ZRA. He's probably in that postseason rotation. It's just fascinating to me. I do
Yeah.
want to turn this. Yeah, what you got?
I was just gonna say every pitch is good. It's really fun to
Every single
watch.
one.
Like,
And on the other side, Cristopher Sanchez has 2 pitches. Like, it's a show me slider. He's got 2 pitches. They kind of move the same. One of them is just 10 miles an hour slower, and he gets ground balls at will. Ground ball pitchers, I think, are inherently going to be more
yes.
underappreciated. Like, I've thought Logan Webb has been underappreciated for a while, but it seems like people are starting to come around on him. I don't want to turn this into like guys naming dudes, but I am curious if you have other underappreciated arms in baseball, because there is a clear cut one that jumps out for me. He's got a 2.25 ERA this year. Like, I feel like not enough people are acknowledging Hunter Brown as one of the best pitchers in the game yet.
I agree with that in terms of like, I don't think people are realizing how freaking good this guy's been. But Sanchez is like a poster boy of that right now because it's not just the ground ball. It's 58% ground ball rate. It's a 26% K rate. And then, yeah, it is mostly the 2 pitches, but the slider is good enough. The Senga conversation, the slider is good enough where it can be that bridge pitch and that taste breaker that makes him effective. And I don't know. I think you were part of this too. You could definitely pull some audio of me, just the talking heads on this show saying, how could you trade Curtis Mead for Cristopher Sanchez?
I'm sure.
Hey, they always say don't trade with the Rays, right? Well, there's another instance where sometimes you can win there. But I'm trying to think of the obvious, an obvious answer. But Merrill Kelly, like he does it every single year, and I still don't feel like he gets enough shine. Like, no, I felt like he wasn't even really discussed that much as a huge deadline acquisition in terms of pitchers who were acquired at the deadline. How many have been performing better than Merrill Kelly?
Yeah, nobody really.
I'm trying to think. I don't think anybody has that I can think of.
Maybe Yohan Duran as it pertains to like arms in general, but in terms of a starting pitcher, nobody aside from Errol Kelly. And
And
nobody's
then
throwing bigger
Nick
innings.
Pivetta has a 2.85, by the way. That was the other one. I was just going to say Nick Pivetta.
Pivetta has a 2.85. The other two that jumped out to me, to be honest with you, Abbott has a 2.88. And I know Abbott has struggled a little bit. Andrew Abbott in Cincinnati. It feels broken record-ish on this show, but I watched a clip of, a different pod saying, like, I don't understand how he gets out. He gets outs, and it stems from fastball and changeup execution and a little weirdness and crossfire nature to his delivery. The other one that I wanted to highlight here is Brian Wu in Seattle. I don't think people appreciate that he gets through 6 every single time. He was an out away from extending that, I think, record at the outset, or one of the records at the outset, in terms of 6 innings every single time he toes the rubber. Wu does it with a 4-seam fastball and a sinker, and the 4-seam fastball gets pub. But I don't think people are acknowledging him as a possible top 10 pitcher in baseball just yet, when they probably should.
I mean, he's a 207 opponent batting average with a 615 slug, and he walks nobody. Or sorry, 364 slug, 615 OPS. Yeah. He walks nobody. I'd say the only thing for him is just keeping the ball in the yard a little bit more, and that's going to be what comes with the high carry fastball guys. But man, I mean, he easily has more to unlock too. Sneaky, just 25 years old as well. Like, he's young. He taught himself that sinker because people said you're going to have a home run problem, and he finds that sinker. I think he's going to just continue to evolve and get better as well.
So we shall see what goes on in terms of these guys and how their careers mature. But it does seem like Yamamoto has a possible Cy Young in his future, maybe a couple. It seems like Sanchez might have, not a Cy Young, but Cy Young votes coming this year.
Could Freddie Peralta get one?
Freddie Peralta could be underappreciated. He could track for that. Obviously, Skeens is kind of dominating the National League right now, but Freddie Peralta is probably going to finish second, and Sanchez could very well finish third. Okay, we got 20 seconds. How many Cy Youngs does Yamamoto win in his career?
Oh, it's so tough because he could have an incredible career and not get one because of that Skeens guy, like you said. But I think he gets one. I think he gets one. It's just, and not because it's his fault, because we're in this pitching renaissance right now too with these guys. I think he gets one.
Okay, I'm with you. See you soon on the Just Baseball Show. When I said see you soon, I meant talk to you in 2 minutes or 5 seconds, depending on where you are. Back here on the Just Baseball show, Jack McMullen, Arm Layton. We just talked about the underappreciated arms in baseball. And now I want to pivot to a couple of guys that are coming stateside. We saw this note on MLB trade rumors that a couple of guys are expected to be posted for MLB teams. John Heyman reported that Kazuma Okamoto and Tetsuya Imai are expected to be posted for Major League Baseball. The big ticket name in international free agency this year is the power hitting third baseman that was on Team Japan in the World Baseball Classic, Munetaka Murakami, if you remember that name. Murakami was dealing with some serious strikeout issues over the last couple of years. He was all the rage in 23 because in 22, he had over 50 homers in Nippon Professional Baseball, which is that league in Japan. It's the second best league on the planet. Murakami struggled for a little bit. He's having an out-of-body experience offensively right now. But what jumps out about these two guys? We can start with Murakami, or we can go to these two.
Yeah, quickly on Murakami, the more I've been able to watch him and the more just I've been digging and trying to get info, research, the more I'm buying in. He was hurt, banged up the last year or so. Still also a guy that's sneaky, just 25 years old. Then you start to compare the batted ball data to a guy that had a lot of power that came over, but also had some things he needed to clean up and some whiff. Shohei Ohtani. And it's not that different. Now, I'm not comparing him to Shohei, but it's important to note, like, Shohei's data was not perfect when he was coming over. And yes, he did make a ton of changes and found things, and it may not be a path that everybody can follow, but Murakami's hitting the ball harder. So there's just some interesting wrinkles there. But the more I dig in and the more I watch, the more I'm getting excited about what he can be. And yeah, I keep hearing phenomenal things about the makeup of Murakami as well, which is really important when you're coming over and totally having your life flipped upside down and just put into such difficult situations, both socially and in terms of just playing. But I'll start with Imai. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. Tetsuya Imai, and I do want to
Imai.
give you kind of the survey look of his stats as they stand right now. Not a big guy, 27-year-old, listed at 5'11", 154. I'm not sure if you have a different listed height and
No,
weight.
that's exactly what I got.
In 143 and two-thirds innings, he's got a 1.5 ERA. Opponents have 85 hits against him in 144 innings pitched. He's punched out 159, and he's not walking guys, fewer than 2.5 walks per nine. So the statistics from a survey look are unbelievable for him.
Yeah, I think the floor is pretty high for a guy like this. And I think he's got a great chance to come over stateside and get outs. What I'm interested to see is just how much swing and miss. We talked about just kind of the differences when you go to the big league ball as well. Because what's interesting with Imai is you have kind of low release, and it's kind of a low 3/4 release, and he works down the mound well. So when he's getting 13 inches of induced vertical break and 13 inches of horizontal, which is kind of dead zone, from that low release and that arm angle, that's going to play up and still generate whiff at the top. I don't know if he's going to get that same kind of action with a four seamer. He might end up, or with a big league ball, may end up kind of getting off on the side of it a little bit more and turns into more of a sinker. So it's just something that's interesting there. The splitter has been good, and it's a really nasty swing and miss pitch, but his feel for it already is a little bit spotty at points. So is it going to be there more or less with a big league ball? What's interesting with him is that he actually has a really good slider. And that pitch, it's like a gyro slider that's a big swing and miss offering, which should bode well for his move over, the fact that he can really spin a pitch there. But the command is so good, very athletic on the mound. The one other thing is I've seen him throw fastballs as hard as 98. I've seen him throw fastballs as low as 92. There's this kind of wide range of velocities here. And that's something that is important because I think he's going to be a velo dependent guy. So if it's more 95s, I think he's going to be in a really good spot. But if it's 92s, 93s, and probably a little bit flatter, those are going to get hit harder. So that's the fascinating wrinkle in this whole thing. But you also remember he's not going to be throwing 125 pitches every outing. So that would help.
Yeah, that would certainly help. You feel like the fit is mid-rotation arm, back the rotation arm? What would you forecast the deal to look like? Would it be
Yeah,
like
that's the
Senga, 5
interesting
for
part.
75?
Yeah, I think it would be something Senga-ish. Like I think you're dreaming on middle rotation, like high end middle rotation, but you're also bracing for back end of the rotation, and you don't want to be devastated if that's the case. Like I think there's a good chance that it could be that too. And given that range, I think that's probably a fair price point.
Based on the look that you've gotten so far, and based on you did like very good reporting on Shota Imanaga when he was coming over. You think Shota was better than Imai?
I do think Shota is better.
Okay.
Because I think Shota's stuff, and and I thank you for the compliment. When I wrote that piece, I was really focused on why Imanaga is going to translate well here. And it was the way that he could generate vert and that invisible fastball that you could just lock in to have success here.
And this is more velocity dependent than vert dependent.
Yeah, and maybe he can spin a little bit better of a slider, but Imanaga's splitter was a little bit ahead too. So but also Imai's younger. So
yeah,
see how much that matters. And you can maybe give him a longer term deal and say, worst case, this guy's eating innings for us. And if he's a 4, well, great. He's going to go throw 180 innings at a low 4s, some years high 3s, and no one's going to lose sleep over that deal. But I just felt like Imanaga had a higher ceiling.
We got about 2 minutes. Tell me about Kazuma Okamoto.
I like Okamoto. And I think when you're looking at a free agent class, that could be a little bit light on the bats, and especially corner infield. I don't think there's a ton of corner infield bats in this class.
No, there's not.
He's kind of coming over at the perfect time, both for him and I just think free agency. He's 29 years old. I think he's right in his prime. It's not going to be a mega long deal, but a team that gets Okamoto could feel pretty good about him being able to jump in and make an impact right away. Hits the ball in the air consistently. It's a 31% ground ball rate. The EVs are plus, and he has a really good feel to turn around velocity and pull the ball hard in the air, which has just become so in vogue in Major League Baseball now, right? So you got a guy that fits that bill. I feel really good about sticking him at first base and saying, go mash for us. And I know that he could play a little bit of third too. I won't pretend to have done the defensive dive there just yet, but I love the bat speed. I love the swing. I love where he's at. If he can fill in at third, that's great. That helps even more. But even if you're moving him at first, he's going to be an asset, I think, in this class that doesn't have a ton of power bats that can blend, I think, decent bat to ball and really good angles and above average exit velocities.
And he seems like somebody that a mid-market team could be interested in
That's
terms of a pursuit of a corner infielder, first baseman, third baseman. Kazuma Okamoto, 143 games in 2024, hit 280 with 27 homers. This year been limited to just 60 games to this point, but in those 60 contests, Okamoto 305 batting average, a 381 on base, 11 homers. And oh, by the way, he really doesn't punch out. He's walked 23 times and K'd 29 times. So it seems like a relatively safe bet, but we shall see how Imai does on the free agent market, how Okamoto does, and if Murakami comes over, how Murakami does. Back to wrap in a minute on the Just Baseball Show. All right, Just Baseball Show is wrapping up here. Jack McMullen, Aram Layton. Timing constraints might have cut us short on Okamoto here. I mentioned he could be interesting for possible mid-market teams. It doesn't seem like Okamoto would be, like, the slam dunk, let's get $100 million from the Yankees here. Like, you're thinking what, like a 2-3 year deal? Like, hey, this can work, and we'll see if we get 20 homers from you?
Exactly. And I think, maybe there's a world where you get enough middle market teams involved and a couple big markets checking in, and maybe they can squeeze out a 4th year. But I still think this is a guy that is that shot to take for these middle market teams, that you could dream on 30 homers because he's got the power and the ability. But, I think also the fact that there's pressure on the bat, maybe teams are going to be aiming a little bit higher at premium offensive positions. It could be a good entry point of like a high ceiling opportunity for teams that usually don't have a shot at players, with that kind of ability. Because if you can hit 30 home runs in the show, usually you've done it before and you're going to get a lot of money in free agency. So I think this would be the perfect target for a lot of these middle market teams. And he has the ability, batted ball angles wise and quality wise, to hit 30 home runs if it all works out.
And you mentioned, the corner infield market is pretty tight right now. Like, I look at this market and I see, who's available for the middle markets. And I see like a Carlos Santana. It's not like Bregman is going to be available there. It's really interesting to see. So this guy could kind of have his pick of the litter as it pertains to teams in the market for middle market bats. But we'll see what happens with Imai. We'll see what happens with Okamoto. Wrapping real quick, I just want to go over like the series of the week because it's a fascinating week of baseball. You got the Mets and the Phillies in Philly. It's 4 at Citizens Bank Park. That's fascinating to me. Milwaukee is in Texas for a midweek series. Cincinnati's in San Diego. Meanwhile, you got the Dodgers trying to hold off the Rockies at home. So, like, I'm just looking at how the NL East is going to shake out. Time back to the beginning, I'm looking at how the AL East is going to shake out. And obviously, I'm looking at how the AL West is going to shake out as well. By the way, you got Tigers, Yankees going on in the Bronx as well this week. So, there are a couple of series that jump out to me. Which ones catch your eye in particular? And you're saying this could actually have an impact on what happens come the final week of September.
I think what we alluded to a little bit earlier, and it's more just about like a gut check. I think Yankees Tigers, because, and not doing the Yankees thing here, we're not going to do that, but like it's just because they've have this bender of a stretch here, and I'm still trying to figure out who they are. And they're making a really strong case with the last two series against two teams that they have a great chance of potentially playing in the postseason and are good measuring sticks for them. And then you got another one right here too, and a team that can beat you in a little bit of a different way than the other two. So I think just seeing how they battle against the Tigers will be really interesting to me, just to get an idea of where the Yankees are at now. And you also look at some of the pitching matchups there as well. I think it makes it for a fun a fun battle. You got Mize versus Warren as the probables. Then you've got Flaherty versus Rodon, which I think is like that would potentially be a postseason matchup because they're both those guys are going to have to be relied upon. And then we'll see who gets the ball in the third game, but it should be Schlittler who's going to get a chance to bounce back here against the Tigers.
Other one that jumps out to me, I failed to mention Houston and Toronto north of the border. Houston and Toronto is an interesting midweek set right now because, again, you've got Toronto trying to keep the stiff arm on the rest of the AL East, notably the Yankees, and then you've got Houston trying to keep the stiff arm on Seattle and the Rangers right now. So that series jumps out to me. The other one is Cincinnati and San Diego. How does the cookie crumble in Southern California this week? Cincinnati's sort of kind of making a push. The Mets have really done nothing to secure that third wild card spot. That one is going to,
I think it's kind of their
brain in the pretzel.
It's kind of a last gasp for them too, because if they drop 2 out of 3, they're still fine. They're still alive theoretically, but if they get swept or whatever, the Reds, like, they're in trouble. So I think it's a chance to, and also if it goes the other way, you win 2 out of 3 there, the schedule gets softer the rest of the way. And I think the obvious one is Mets Phillies, right? Which we alluded to, but the way it is too, they'll end up like battling each other, and then it'll come down to the final series when they're not playing each other. But I think there's a lot of storylines within that series because what Sean Manaea are you getting?
Yeah.
Like Sean Manaea needs to match Ranger Suarez, who's the those are the probable starters there. Like that's, I think, going to be a really important thing to monitor there. What's the deal with Clay Holmes? Is he running out of gas? How are they going to utilize him? He needs to match Cristopher Sanchez. Like all of a sudden, when you see these teams match up against each other, you feel the pitching gap all of a sudden, even without Wheeler. And I think that's going to be important. And then with the Mets, I don't think they get their wonderkin rookies going in any of these games, right? Then it's going to be David Peterson most likely on Thursday, unless they change something against, I don't know who is announced as the probable yet for the Phillies. So it's not any of the rookies. It's kind of the vets that they need and expect and are going to probably need to make them, they're going to need to get going in the postseason. Here's your chance.
Fascinating week of baseball in front of us on the American League side and the National League side. Thank you for joining us on the Just Baseball Show again here every week on Sports Grid. For Arm Layton, I'm Jack McMullen. For our podcast folk, we will talk to you on Thursday. Have a great rest of your day.